if they merge the lot, it's going to cloud the entire.
So what's going to happen here is we typically would merge both properties, and because there's a cloud on the city title, whatever, I think it's shorthand for, we can't, there's something in the deed, in the
Yeah.
chain of title that we're not able to somehow fix or cure easily. So because of that, there's gonna be two separate properties. So the owner will have its own property and then this new property, but they're not gonna be combined together. That's
Absolutely.
essentially what we're doing here, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Who was the applicant for this item?
The applicant is Essex Realty Trust. They own the business in front. It's a restaurant. So the use for this is for parking for that restaurant.
Can I get a copy of that, a picture that you're looking at? Do you have an extra? Oh, okay. Because I'm looking at something else. Okay, gotcha. All right, never mind.
Oh, here it is. The last one. It's like
276.13.
25, yep, that's it. 25 bucks.
You don't have one.
Here it is. Took it out.
And because we have issues, you have the law? Because we have issue with the title, are we changing any other things in terms of pricing and stuff like that?
No, the price remains the same, and it was a request for proposal, so we can't change the price now. We'd have to start the process all over again. And that's the case with a lot of city-owned properties. That's why we have not been able to sell a lot of properties, because there's title defects. But this buyer is willing to purchase it with the title defect.
And that haven't been determined yet, right?
The
price?
No, the price was determined.
Because this was back in 2013, I believe.
This was a prior disposition for $18,620. So we'll still get the $18,620. And at the end of the day, keeping the lot separate will bring more tax revenue to the city. When you merge the lot, the value decreases on that empty lot because it's one property.
Angela, there is any other question?
Chair?
Sure, go ahead. Take it.
So can you clarify, I'm looking at the picture here, and I'm looking at the schematic over here, and it says the subject property is 25 Oxford Street. And so the subject property is highlighted in yellow. Is the clouded portion what's behind it?
Now, the clouded portion is the subject property.
Is the subject property?
So we asked them to merge the lot to make it into one property, the one that says applicant's property and subject property. If they merge the lot, it's going to cloud the entire property. They like to keep it separate.
Okay, so, one second, just because you understand exactly what you're saying, and I'm trying to understand what you're saying. So the applicant's property and the subject property, originally in this line 3, said that needed to be considered one, yes?
Yes.
And so what we're doing now is the applicant property is still the applicant's property, and they're actually purchasing or taking out that line item for the
Yes.
subject property at the 18,000,
620.
at the 18,620, but there be considered two separate properties under the condition that we accept the deletion of line 3 on the original deed restriction,
Yes,
because the subject property is clouded.
it's clouded.
And so the applicant's property is considered a clean title, all set.
It's all set, so if they go to get financing,
It's all set.
it's all set for them.
And so while they're still continuing the Essex, you said who it was?
Essex Realty Trust.
Essex Realty Trust is still willing to work with the city, buy that while we straighten out the title.
Yes, and it's still it's still a non-buildable lot. They still
And it's a
cannot build.
non-buildable lot because the point, what is the use of the subject property?
We sold it for parking.
For parking?
for parking.
Okay, so the intent of that space is to be used for parking?
For
For the
parking.
restaurant that's in front?
Absolutely.
Thank
Yes.
you.
You're welcome.
All right, there is any questions? Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we send this up to the council with a favorable recommendation to withdraw the restriction number 3 as part of as one of the conditions for the previous sale of this property. Is there anything else I need in the motion, or is that it?
That's it.
That's the motion.
Motion has been made.
Second?
Properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 The ayes have it. Thank you, Liza.
You're welcome.
All right, our third item of the agenda tonight is item 9:15. It's a prior disposition. Liza, can you brief us out about this item, please?
Yeah, so this, we try to do a yard sale to an abutter on this property. And again, this property also has a cloud on the title. This applicant was not willing to purchase the property with that title defect, and then she sold her property and moved to Haverhill. So I'd like to rescind the vote that we did for Catherine Ballmer to purchase the property. Just withdraw that vote.
I'd like to, Mr. Chairman?
Councilors?
I'd like to make a motion that I'd like to make a motion that we rescind the vote taken by the full council to dispose of the property to Catherine Volmore, and that we send that report up with a favorable recommendation to the full city council.
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Our next item is 17916. It's a surplus property, 93 Hancock Street. Can you go through the process of what we do in the surplus and stuff like that? That way we
Yes,
can get up
absolutely.
to speed.
So when the city becomes owner to a property and we are ready to sell it, we do a real estate assessment need with the city departments. We send an email to all city department heads to see if the city has a need for the property. This process was done on this property back in, I believe, in May. So the property was declared surplus, and it made it available for disposition. For this property, we did a request for proposal, which means that it's not sold to an abutter or for parking. It's advertised to the public for different things. So for this property, we're looking for someone to demolish the existing structure that's there and to build, keeping in mind the housing needs of the city. So we did a request for proposal. We received 10 bids, ranging from $5,000 to $13,000. The applicant is the highest bidder on the monetary side. And they're proposing to demolish the existing structure for the construction of a two-family home with off-street parking in the back of the building.
What are they planning on doing there after?
They're gonna demo the single-family home and do a
And
two-family home.
build two-family, okay. Do we have enough space for the two-family?
They're gonna need zoning permit variances, so it's still going to
3,600
have to
square
go.
feet here. It's pretty much, sometimes we do that as a yard sale.
The only reason why it may be allowed is because the structure is still there, so they can build on the same foundation.
Yeah. All right, Councilor LaPlante?
Sure, so it would be helpful, Mr. Chairman, when we get these
Did I highlight them?
tax maps to highlight the properties, because I'm not sure exactly where it is on Hancock Street,
93.
and my eyes are not as good as they used to be.
So it's
So I
on
can't
the,
find 93 on here.
it's on the top, right towards the middle. It's number 61.
Okay.
You see it?
So it's number 61, even though it says 93?
It's map 184, lot 61.
Okay, so 'cause we're looking for 93 Hancock Street, so it's lot
So it's
61.
this right here.
Okay,
You see it here?
I do. So, through you, Mr. Chairman, so my question is, I ask this typically on most of these meetings, we're gonna go from a single family to a two-family, and I realize there's parking in the back. But again, when we're creating more dense areas, and we're now doubling the potential occupancy in that area, which of course would affect cars, and also, we're also dealing with a very dense school-age population in the city where we're not having enough space in our city to well, we're at the point where we're busting at the seams from our schools. And so if we're continuing one here, one here, one here, the problem that we're facing is all of a sudden we start to have, we're making the problem just a little bit worse. So I like to get the city's thinking with those comments, why we think it's a good idea to go from one family to two family, and then exacerbate what I consider to be some of the challenges that we face.
Yeah, I understand. So for this, we went with the highest bidder, and I think for this particular property, all we got was two-family homes offers. We only received two-family homes offers on this particular lot.
Doesn't mean anything.
But just because, and it's not my district, and it's the chairman's district, so I'm treading carefully, but,
Yeah. No, I'll always keep that in mind, your concerns.
but it seems as, I mean, I'll definitely lean on the chairman on this, but, you know, my sense is, if we're not getting what we're looking for, then I don't understand why we gotta jump at it right now. A year from now, the market changes, things change both good and bad, we don't know, right?
Yeah.
But there may be a development or a developer who's looking to build a single family, and we wait it out a little bit. And I guess the question is urgency. How urgent are we to get this back on the tax rolls, and that's the positive, right? And how urgent is that we bring this money as soon as possible? And those are questions I don't have immediate answers to.
Yeah.
Neither do you, okay?
How many parking spaces we gonna have on the two-family house that they're planning on doing?
4
4? And they're gonna be in the back
in the back of the building.
with 3,600 square feet?
Well,
There's no parking right now. Is that driveway there on the house right now?
there isn't. This is going to be a tough one. The city has owned this property for many, many years because it's hard to sell this property. It's on Hancock Street. It's a small parcel. It's right next to the project's parking. So it was hard to sell, but we did find a few people who did offer to buy the property.
So they're proposing on having a driveway, parking in the back. It's not really a driveway right now,
There is not.
and they're gonna build in the same foundation. That doesn't make any sense to me.
The
McCarthy, can you
applicant's
jump
here.
in?
If you want to. And there is, actually, if you look at Lot 62, that's in Land Court, and, you know, we would love to take that little lot that's there and take it out of Land Court and merge those two lots. But there's a title defect with that, so we have to start from the beginning. So our intent is to eventually sell this little strip of land like a yard sale so that they can use it for this property.
Can you help us out with the question I had previously?
I know when the tax, the real estate board reviewed the properties to see what uses we require, we did make a two-family home one of those. Decision was made based upon the type of housing that's on Hancock Street in the residential district, that it is an R2 district and permits two-family homes by right, and that many of the homes on that street, I'd say, but for the majority of the homes, are twos or higher.
they are.
This is one of the few single-family homes on that street. It's also adjacent to to one of the city Lawrence Housing Authority properties, the Hancock projects. This is right adjacent to a parking lot owned by that's used for the school. So we didn't see anything negative as towards putting a two-family home down there. and that would increase the housing stock, and it was more valuable. I think the biggest detriment to this property in selling it was the existence of this home on that, which is in awful shape. It's been used for a lot of nefarious activity. Children have gone in there. There's no owner to make responsible for this property, so it was very urgent that we get this building demolished and turn it around. So we did review, as I said, there's 10 applications, and the committee felt that this was the strongest application based upon the merits.
Chair, is it possible, because I share some of the same concerns, and, I'm sorry. Is it possible to have this proposed plan, like we've seen previously, the schematics of it? Because I can't visualize how this can happen in this space. It would be helpful if we saw something. I'm only asking if it's possible, saw something where, yes, this is where the driveway is, this is where the parking's gonna be. This is a very condensed area. I have a friend who lives here, we come through here, and the hope for this land court and being able to hand over, in some ways, the land adjacent to that is not comforting, because there's no assurance, right?
I
It's only-
believe because of the size of the property and the proposed housing, this is going to have to go to the zoning board of appeals for review, regardless of whether it's a single or two. The zoning board of appeals could very well say, we don't want to see a two-family home there. It would go back to the purchaser to see if you do a single. If he didn't, we'd return his money. But that's, we do have the board set up as a mechanism to make sure that they meet the best standards of the city. So the zoning board of appeals would review this matter.
I think you can go off the board. I'm fine with it.
What are we voting on?
Essentially what we're doing is it's gonna be up to the zoning board. If they accept it, and then they proceed. But I mean, it's up to them.
So today we are doing.
We are approving the property. Well, at this committee, and then we send it to the full council. And then down there we decide. Go ahead.
So like, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to follow the chair's lead. It is his district, but I want to make one just overriding comment. And I've had a chance to testify before the zoning board, this similar testimony that I provided in my comments earlier regarding density, regarding schools, regarding parking, in some cases regarding snow plows going through in the wintertime on some very heavily dense areas. And what I think is important maybe for this committee to understand, and I think we have the housing study, which I don't have in front of me, is to know what is our housing stock at this point? I know we have the numbers, I just don't have it in front of me. And then I'd like to know, as we're going through the process, as decision makers are making determinations, is it in our best interest to have more multiple family housing and adding more units in the city? Or is it in our interest to have in some neighborhoods or in some parts of the city, fewer residents to create less parking impacts, less scholastic impacts, et cetera? And this is a discussion that we should just, I think, engage in at some point, and it's probably not tonight in detail, but to say, okay, maybe we as a city want to have a no net new number of units in the city. Maybe we need to be aware of what that number is and say, for a variety of different reasons, we want to stay at this level, we want to cap it. And if we're going to put 2 here, we're going to reduce it somewhere else throughout the city. If there's going to be another property that comes before us, it's going to go from a 2-family to a 1-family, and we just offset each other. That kind of discussion. I don't know of any other committee that does that. I'm kind of just talking off the top of my head a little bit, but I'm willing to engage in that kind of conversation and see if the administration would agree to something like that, your department, of course, and I'd like to see if we can pursue that kind of dialogue. So, I don't know where the chairman sits on this, but I would like, if we're gonna make a motion on this, my comfort level would be to make a motion to send it up to the full council without a recommendation. That way we don't hold it up here, and we can certainly move it on up, and then we can have a greater discussion at the full council level as to what we see as a vision for our city when it comes to these kinds of properties, going from 1 to 2. And I realize this is only one situation, but what I'm seeing across the city is we nickel and dime. It's 2 here, it's 1 here, it's 2 here, it's 1 here. And that adds up over time. It's been adding up over time, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's been adding up. So, Mr. Chairman, if that's all right with you, that's the motion I'd like to throw out there this evening.
To me, I would like to, we can send it over with no recommendation. I would like to to see this area being, or this specific house being built. And I will say that it will gonna be up to the zoning board to approve a two-family house up there. And if they wanna do a single, but by all means, because we have the space. Just to ask a single question before we move on with the motion. And what's the status of the kind of like the little lot that we have right next to it, the 12.09
The lot
feet in
next
the
to it,
front?
that lot is in land court. We might have to start the process all over again, recording a new taken and starting the.
So, but I mean, is that lot we be able to, if we ever get that lot, is that gonna hold up on the construction on this,
I don't think so. It will just
we go
add,
through with it?
it will just add green space and parking to the property.
Because what I'm seeing is that I wouldn't like to see if they're planning on building, holding up the whole thing, just because they're waiting for the other piece, because in total, it's gonna be about 35 feet in the front.
Yeah.
And that way, it kinda makes sense to have the parking in the back.
This is a thing that we went back and forth at the real estate task for whether to wait for the other one or just try to sell this. But I see your point, both you and Councilor LaPlante.
Because essentially, right now, at least, we can, if anything happen up there, we can call the city or this and that, but eventually it's gonna be a private property,
Yeah, this property has been boarded up since 1996.
Yep.
So it's a long time that it's been in this situation.
All right, there is a motion on the table?
I'd like to make a motion that we send it up without a recommendation.
Second?
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 The ayes have it. We're gonna be discussing this item on the next full council meeting. If you can come, please,
September 6th?
September 6th.
September 6th.
Thank you.
I'd like to table the next two items,
Which are,
25116 and 25216.
Make a motion to table document 251 and 25216.
there's any problem with it, you should be aware of?
No, I just did not, I don't have all the real estate assessment needs back from department heads.
Okay, there is a motion on the table.
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, those two items are 251. Well, I think that we gotta take it as a package, or we gotta do it individually.
I just put it together.
I'll be ready next housing committee meeting, we can talk about this.
All right, item 251 and item 252-16 are table. And now we're gonna be discussing item 253-16, which is an easement on 120 Ansbury Street. And Mr. McCarthy?
She put this together. Is this you? It's your English? Proofreading? Shame on you.
papers.
Where's the stone?
Huh?
Where's the stone? Where's the stone? Sorry, here's the-
Jeez, make it today. Let me remember. Okay, McCarthy, let me ask you a question very quick. Is item 253, 54, and 55, and 56 are kind of the same deal?
Yes.
I want to speak on the microphone.
Do you guys want to take that as a package, or you want to just,
I think these could be done as a package, I think it makes sense.
all right, would like to get a, can I get a motion to have item 253, 254, and 255, and 256 as a package?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So what we'll do, Mayra, is that we're gonna be taking item 253, 54, and 255, and 256, because they're kind of the same deal. We're gonna be discussing it as one, and we're gonna see the result of each one individually, but we're dealing with it as a package.
Okay, the city's been very fortunate to have a very good, close working relationship with the Department of Transportation for the last several years. During certain projects that come up during the construction phase, the years, some municipalities are unable to spend all the money that's granted to them by the state. In this case, there's a section of money that was could not be spent by another municipality, which became available, but because it was legislated and earmarked, it had to be spent within this construction cycle. Because of the relationship with the city, we were able to get one of our TIP programs on there, which was a request to improve the intersections on a downtown corridor along Common Street and on Lowell Street to upgrade the intersections, put new crosswalks in, put ADA-compliant ramps, and to put new signal lights, which will have timers and hearing audio components for the seeing impaired. I've got a project. This actually encompasses 12 intersections and 4 crosswalks, and it's a total of 48 property owners that are involved in this. But in this case, we work with our engineer, which is Tech Engineering, to try and get down to do as few easements, permanent easements as possible. And through the engineering process, we were able to get it down to 4 permanent easements that we're going to be encroaching on the property of 4 individuals. And we're asking them to grant us a permanent easement so that we can go on and make repairs and place our equipment and our ramps into their property. So I've given you a package. The package contains 4 close-ups of the each intersection that we're requesting. And I also gave you a sample easement agreement that has been reviewed by the state DCAM and by our city attorney and approved, and also a land description. We are still working on some of the details on the description. As you are all aware, you were there Tuesday night when I requested that this matter be scheduled for a public hearing on September 6th. I did speak with the Department of Transportation agent who's working with us. They said the drop-dead date for this project is September 14th, that if we don't get all the easements, we're going to lose a portion or of the money pertaining to each one of those intersections. So it's important that we work on this very, very quickly. We have the verbal agreement from all the property owners that they will provide us the easement. We've been in touch with all of them, and we will have those documents prepared and filed by the date of the public hearing. I also have the descriptions down. I spoke with Mr. Maloney today. This has to be prepared and sent to the Eagle Tribune by Wednesday if we're to get these into the public notice available. So the properties that in question, can I approach the board and point them out to the properties, or do you have any questions about that? I can direct you to what the properties we're talking about.
I'm fine, I'm seeing.
So the 4 easements that we're speaking of, there's 2 at this intersection here.
You wanna
Both on
take
the
the
south
microphone
side
and
of
bring it
Collins Street.
over.
One
Bring
is from the GLCAC,
Take that one and bring it over.
that's easement number 5.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Just take the microphone and speak into that.
Is it working?
The table would work too, that's easier, whatever's easiest. Whatever's easiest. Whatever's easier. He's got a camera, they got a camera on it already, I think, Giovanni, Mr. Chairman. Uh-oh, oh. Just leave that thing, yeah. No, no,
Well, I figured the closest one, nobody would be tripping, and that'll still be here. Whatever you want to do, I mean, I was trying to focus on that. Thank you.
all right, that works.
Okay, the easements are not in numerical order because we started out with 6 easements, and we were able to get rid of 2 of them that we didn't have to get. Easement number 2, though, is at the corner of Amesbury and Lowell Street. It's in front of the Giant Glass, and that's an easement where a light fixture and ramps are going to go. The second one is at the corner of Amesbury and Common, and it's across from the Buckley Garage, and that's going to have a light signal on it as well. The other 2 are at this intersection at the corner of Lawrence Street and Common Street. One is on the property that belongs to the GLCAC. We've already got their signed agreement. And the other one is from the Bay State Building. And we verbally have a verbal agreement with that person to provide us easement. So that's the basics of what we're doing. The project is pretty self-sufficient, clear. It's mainly intersections. There are 2 sets of crosswalks. These ones are on Winthrop Avenue. Very, very dangerous area. We had a fatality there many years ago, and these will have flashers that flash every time. There's actually one that's working. We have it down on Manchester Street. We have one that's currently up and running near Sal's. So they'll flash every time a pedestrian pushes a button to cross. The other ones will be put in front of the City Hall and crossing Common Street right out here. Both those intersections will have those flashers and the upgrades with the handicap ramps.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, so the vote tonight will essentially be for 4 different locations to grant an easement. You're just giving us a little more information regarding the grant project.
Right.
And what kind of impacts we're going to see across the city beyond what the easements are going to provide in those 4 different locations.
That is correct. And the vote we're asking the City Council to take is to accept the easements from these 4 property owners. They're going to grant them, and we're going to.
Well, you sure know how to make a guy turn his head when you talk about Winthrop Avenue. That's awesome, and I know that's a real big area, and that's my district, and that's a huge problem. And you're right, that in that particular area, that's been a fatality, and that's a huge issue, getting people safely across that major street. But tonight, that vote's not on that, but it's good to know that's taking place. The vote tonight's going to be on 4 different areas. And I think, Mr. Chairman, once we grant those easements to go forward and we allow that money to be spent on this project, that's going to make a fundamental improvement throughout the inner part of our city, right in this area quadrant of the city. It's going to be fantastic. I think when you go in there, the driving public, the walking public is going to really pick up on the fact that there are substantial areas. Are sidewalks being just worked on as well, or
Around
is it
there,
just?
Around there, it will be.
Yeah.
The sidewalks at each of these corners is going to be redone.
ADA,
but
with the ADA compliance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ADA compliant. Right now, we have, the way our ramps are designed, they come out at the apex of the corner, and that's not the state's approved design. They want the 2 separate ramps on each side crossing the street further back from the intersection. So part of that gets the pedestrian further from the intersection, but it also has the cars setting back a little bit more, too.
Let's talk about timeframes. When do we expect to see this kind of, to break ground and to see these?
In the spring,
2017.
2017.
All of these changes you're going to see
All of them.
2017.
This is going to be done. We hope that this is, we have this on the same track that we just did Park and Lawrence Street development. We think it's going to be about the same time frame. which are on a very quick, very fast schedule. You have to get these advertised. The state has to advertise them, has to go out for construction bids, contracts. So we've been working very closely with Tech Engineering, trying to get those contracts and details done. We've been making changes, even up as late as last week. We had some changes made on this, so it's almost being done in real time.
So so you just gave us an easement agreement, a boilerplate one that you're gonna be offering for all.
That is, and it shows you some of the details, that there is a indemnity information, that we're taking responsibility for the maintenance of these properties. So
Just the maintenance of those quadrants, of those intersections.
just that,
Why, I don't,
the part of the easement that will be taking the indemnity on is only the described portion. If you look into your package, where the designs are, they give the details on those. They range in size from, I think, 63 square feet to about 260 square feet. So they're not, they're not large pieces of land. And they are essentially, if you went down there today, you would think they were a city sidewalk, because that's what they
I'm
are.
thinking, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm thinking this is already, I'm confused by the easements, because I'm thinking, these are, it appears to be city-owned properties. And I'm not sure
It
if
does
it's up
appear to
here
be that way. It's a question of title and where the boundaries lay.
Can you just show me and help me just on one example where the actual easement is on this?
Certainly. If you go to, actually, if you go to your package, I did blow-ups of each intersection, and I colored in the easements.
Thank you.
In yellow.
All right, there you go.
So as you can see, that's the one in front of Giant Glass on Amesbury Street. In the Amesbury and Lowell Street. And you can see it's a section that runs in front of the Giant Glass sign, right adjacent to the pavement. It's probably two-thirds of it is already Portland cement that looks like sidewalk, and the rest is asphalt that is on the property.
And then people walk through.
So just one last question, just so I'm clear, because I'm gonna put in this, I'm gonna let my people in my district know about this. So hypothetically, on the Winthrop Ave, just because you brought it up, we're gonna see flashing signals at two different locations. One is near the Wendy's and one is near Durso Ave, two flashing signals.
That is correct.
And a new crosswalk, is that it? Or is it raised as
It's
well?
an existing
The
crosswalk.
the crosswalk is not going to be raised. There's going to be a build-out, a wider provision, and the sidewalk's going to be increased so that the ramp and the curbs work their way in. Because right now, it's just mainly, when the lights change at the Winthrop Plaza complex, the kids will just have to, basically race across the crosswalks. This is gonna, the flashers, the way they work is, they push them in, they start flashing for a period of time, and they will trigger both of the, at the same time, both crosswalks will flash simultaneously, and the lights will turn red, so they can cross.
So they're gonna be hooked into the lights, there's
Yes.
no lights right there, they're gonna be hooked into the lights
The right,
nearby.
the one at Chickering
Yeah.
and the one at the 114.
So both are gonna have red lights when they press this button in
Yes,
between them?
yes.
Wow.
You have to wait for that. And it's similar to the one on Merrimack Street. When you push one of these on Merrimack Street,
Yeah.
they all flash. So it slows traffic down completely. Right now, the only one operating on Merrimack, though, I think is the one near Tom and I. So that one's been working for about 2 weeks now. But I think there's going to be a total of 3 of those, one at the MBTA station and one at Mid-Center near the state offices.
I lied. How much is this, I lied, how much money are we getting from the state for this?
It was originally $2 million, and that wasn't going to cover all of the construction costs. And then 3 weeks ago, we were able to, we got good news from the state. They found the additional $800,000, so it's $2.8 million in total that we'll be receiving from highway funds.
On top of the Chapter 90 monies.
This is on top of Chapter 90 money. This was because of our participation in the TIP program.
And they're gonna be managed by MassDOT, and they're gonna be built by MassDOT.
Yes, DOT is doing all the construction. It's not a city construction project, it's a DOT project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I took way too many.
When you have that coloring, that means that it's gonna be new pavement?
What's that?
When you have the different,
Yes.
different grade, okay.
Yes, and some of them, we have temporary easements on some of the other properties which you're not addressing today, and we're gonna be putting back landscaping, we're gonna be putting back all the abutters properties back into the condition that it was. So we've got donation forms and right of entries on all those properties as well.
Councilor, there is any other questions? Okay, can I get a motion on this item?
Sir Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we send these 4 documents up to the full city council with a favorable recommendation. 253, 54, 55, 256 with favorable recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 The ayes have it. All right, thank you, Mr. McCarthy.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our next item is 30716. I get a phone call from Abel Vargas, the Business and Economic Development Director, and he would like us to table this item.
I'd like to make a motion to table 30716.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Councilors, would you like to talk about any table item or business?
Did Liza leave or is she still here?
She left.
I just wanted to ask about, are there any new properties that we
I was about to
can
ask
check
that
and
too.
see if the conditions have been met, that process?
Mr. McCarthy?
Oh, you turn.
Yes. Before we join the meeting, can you actually talk to Loisa to see if we can get up to speed with with checking on the conditions on the old properties and see which ones are met and which one are not and which one we need to follow up with?
Excuse me, could we say that again?
Can we, when you go back to the office tomorrow, can you actually talk to Liza in terms of some properties that we always check? And we would like to see that, I mean, kind of like,
Sure, sure.
going up to speed with the conditions that we put in every property. So next time when she comes, she can
Okay, yeah,
be
so,
kind of like,
right.
present to us a couple of properties.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Councilors, we have no new items to discuss. What would you like to do?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you so much.